Welcome to Corpstruction, a show about the missions, activities, and employees of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I'm your host, Brandon Parrish. USACE recently updated its National Inventory of Dams database and website. The updated site features user-friendly tools and search capabilities, as well as flood maps to enable communities' emergency preparedness. Becky Ragon, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers National Inventory of Dams Manager, is joining us today to talk to us about the updates to the NID. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start off about telling us a little bit about yourself. I know you said earlier you were a Hokie, right?
I am a Hokie. Not many people may know what a Hokie is, but yes. So my name is Becky Ragon, and I've been working for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers now for more than 25 years. I always like to joke that I started when I was 12 because I just can't be as old as I think I am here. But I've been involved with the National Inventory of Dams, which we commonly call the NID, since the late 1990s when the Corps received that responsibility for updating and publishing the database. So I've worked very closely with all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and 18 federal dam safety offices to update the database. I provide NID help desk support for the website, database, and data collection efforts. And for the last 13 years, I've served in the role as the NID manager. So looking internal to the Corps of Engineers, I also manage our inventory of dams and dam safety program performance metrics that support headquarters. And then as on a personal note, I'm a Virginia Tech graduate. So again, go Hokies. They're actually getting quite a bit of my money because my daughter is a third-year student there. She is studying environmental horticulture. And my son is a first-year student at Radford University, which is about 30 minutes from Virginia Tech. So this mama bear is happy. Her two kids are very close together. My son is studying middle school education. And in my free time, I'm actively involved in the Scouts BSA program and my church. And as a new empty nester, my husband and I are trying to get adjusted to doing all the household chores, remembering what night is trash night, cleaning out the litter box, cutting the grass. All that stuff is just so much fun when it's the two of you. Never realized how much my 18-year-old son used to do around the house.
So when you joined USACE, were you surprised at the ubiquitousness of the dams around the country? I think there are approximately 92,000 in the United States, and based on the area of the U.S., that's about one every 40 square miles. So was that something that just surprised you?
It blew my mind away. When I first started, I think the inventory was right around 75, 80,000 dams at that time. But of course, you know, as a young person, I was familiar with Hoover Dam. And one of my first trips to a dam safety conference to meet all these dam people and learn about their data was in Las Vegas. So I got to go tour Hoover Dam. So that was really exciting. But you just don't realize how many dams there are, you know, around you, how many are small. There's almost 50,000 dams in the NID that are less than 25 feet tall. But it's always interesting when you talk to people that you meet, your neighbors, or, you know, people at a school event, and you start talking about what you do. And I manage the National Inventory of Dams for the Corps of Engineers. They're like, well, how many dams are there? And I'm like, well, you should guess. And no one ever guesses over 90,000. So, again, they're all not Hoover, but there are quite a few big dams in the inventory. But yes, I was really surprised. I had no idea.
Can you tell us what is the NID, the National Inventory of Dams, and why it was created?
Yeah, so the official answer is the NID is a congressionally authorized database that documents more than 92,000 dams across the U.S. and territories. So the dams that are in the database are owned and operated by federal agencies, the military, states, territories, tribes, local governments, public utilities, and private entities. Just to note that the private side owns almost 70% of the dams in the U.S. So for each dam that is in the database, we have more than 70 data fields. So we know where the dam is located, its purpose, the type of materials used to make the dam, its size, when was it last inspected, who owns it, who regulates the dam, whether it has an emergency action plan. And so all this information is provided to the Corps of Engineers from all the states and federal agencies that regulate those dams. So we get that information and we publish it and we maintain it with the help of all those other agencies. And so the original design of the database goes back to the 1970s when Congress first tasked the Corps to identify, inspect, and inventory the dams in the U.S. as part of the National Inspection Program, which was a result of 2 dam failures, Teton and Kelly Barnes, back in the late 1970s.
Is there this is kind of a side question, but aside from low water dams, is there a definition to when, say you have like a cattle pond, that is there a certain size that it has to be before it's considered technically just a dam, that embankment, that does it have to have a release mechanism other than maybe water going over the top?
Right. There is a federal definition of a dam that we use to screen out dams or allow dams into the NID, and it's part of the National Dam Safety Program Act, which was last approved, I think, with WRDA 2018. Any dam that can potentially cause the loss of life or significant consequences, economic, regardless of size, they're included in. But for the low hazard potential dams, who, if they should fail or misoperate, the consequences are limited to the dam owner. So those are typically smaller dams. They either have to be taller than 25 feet tall or hold back 15 acre feet of water, or they have to hold back 50 acre feet of water and be at least 6 feet tall. So typically we say dams in the NID are typically over 25 feet tall, but we do have almost half of the dams in there that are actually less than 25 feet tall, because if they should fail or misoperate, there's some type of significant consequences associated with that particular dam.
So,
that's my long way of saying, yes, we do have size criteria.
so a developer who builds, like, say, an apartment complex and it's in a low-lying area, and they're like, hey, this would be great if we added like a lake vista to it, right? And
right.
So they add this lake it may not be more than 3 or 4 feet deep, but depending on the depth or the size or the area that it covers, it may or may not have a requirement for that.
Right. And more than likely it does, because of the people living downstream of that, there are quite a few golf course dams and homeowner association dams in the NID, just because of those potential consequences.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. That's just amazing. It's not something, you even think about in general. Most people wouldn't even consider that. So
right.
why is it important that people have access to NID as a resource?
Yeah, it's really important for people to know where dams are located, who is responsible for their maintenance, and just those potential risks associated with that particular dam. Again, as we said, you don't always know what is around you. With the Corps of Engineers dams, the Bureau of Reclamation dams, TVA dams, some of these very large dams, the area of consequence can be so far away that people just don't know. That flood inundation zone could be 200 miles away. And so just making sure that people know what's in their area and their potential risk associated with dams that they may or may not know are close to them or could affect them.
And so there's a great deal of data that's available in the NID. How do you envision people utilizing the resource, or how do you hope or most hope people will utilize it?
Yeah, well, with this new website and new interface, we have brand new user-friendly search interface. We're really excited about that, and we hope people are able to quickly search by their location. You can type in a zip code or a county and find all the dams that are in that particular area. You can also go onto the main map and zoom right into your state and zoom into your county and your neighborhood and see if there's any dams in that area. And then you can always see all the accompanying NID information. As we mentioned, we have, more than 70 data points on each dam, as well as learning resources. We have these web pages and videos explaining how dams work, their benefits and risk, and who manages them. So it's definitely more than just a database and here search it and, find all the dams over 100 feet tall or find all the dams in County A. We want to make sure folks are understanding dam safety, the terminology that we use. We've written things in plain English and trying to use things in understandable terms to make sure people understand the scope and breadth of all these dams.
That's so important too, that when you're aiming for information to go out to the public, that you have a query availability that they can use that will at the very least get them in the direction, so that they can know at least how to ask the right question, so that they're not guessing or using different terminology than what we're using.
Right.
So what's important for people to understand about the new information that is available for the dams that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers owns and operates?
Yeah. So the NID has always been around, as we have mentioned, for years. But as dam owners, we feel it's important to share information beyond the NID. So for the dams that the Corps of Engineers owns and operates, we are sharing additional information. We are sharing the results of our risk assessments. So a dam risk assessment identifies any key issues that could contribute to that dam's risk, and then what are the potential actions to take to address those issues. And so, as you know, many of our Corps of Engineer dams have been designed to reduce the risk of flooding downstream, but they don't eliminate all risk of flooding. So we're sharing these narrative fields that summarize why that dam was built, the benefits it provides, and how it works. The idea is that this project description will let people read that and then be able to visualize what's going on at that dam, why it was built, and who it's protecting, and the purposes of it. Then we also have a risk characterization summary and risk management measures. Again, these narratives that are describing any known areas of concern with the dam, and then what are we doing to address those areas. So we have listings of planned and ongoing activities to make sure that the public and people downstream of that dam know that we are addressing those. So we're trying to increase awareness of our dams, their known issues, and our plans to address them. So sharing this information, we're hoping can help set that groundwork for collaborative measures in areas around dams to help further reduce the risk to people and property.
Do you see any potential for the site to have uses, ancillary uses that maybe you didn't think it would be likely before?
I hope so. I'm not sure of any specific examples now. I know over the years, being part of the NID help desk, being the NID help desk, I should say. I've gotten some different types of questions and uses that I didn't think would happen 10, 15 years ago. I received an email from a middle schooler, and he was asking questions about dams in his state. He was doing, a state report, and he just wanted some very basic information about states. And it got me thinking, it's kind of funny. I'm like the encyclopedia of dams here. But we also have insurance companies. That was a new user for me, not thinking about it when sometimes dam owners need insurance, or companies that have dams in their area. So insurance companies are looking up this information, and they want to know the risk associated with these dams. When was it last inspected? Who's regulating it? So the NID is a great starting point for them to use as well to get some of that basic information to then work with those dam owners.
Can you talk about how long you all have been working on updating this product and how satisfied or how you feel about what you have so far?
Sure. There has been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, at least from me. But for the last 2 years, I have been part of a much larger core team working on revamping the NID. So we've had assistance from the National Levee Database side, risk communication, dam safety, public affairs. We've really just had a very large matrixed in team that has been working to revamp this. So we're using the National Levee Database technology and architecture. So we know that that works. They've gotten a lot of positive feedback over the years. And so we're using them, using that whole architecture. That's a great starting platform for us. And we just had to then change it up to make it match dams. As I mentioned earlier, we did add a lot of different resources as far as videos and web pages trying to explain dam safety and explain what dams are, how they work. All of that is new information in the NID, but I am just very thrilled with the website, the way it's turned out. Everybody has been great on our team, putting in a lot of web meetings, a lot of time and effort. They all weren't familiar with the NID until they got on this team, and I think we're all just really happy to have this new product out. It's like people joke with me that it's like my baby, and I'm letting it out the door now. But it is true. It's just been great to see the new site and all the new capabilities that we have.
One of the fascinating things about that site, when I was looking at it myself, is right when you arrive at the homepage, you get a brief breakdown of some important facts and information about dams in the United States. Like the average age is 60 years old, 70% are managed by the state, and only about 6% are federally managed. Can you talk about the decision the editorial sort of decision to incorporate that information onto the website right up front?
Yeah, sure. So we get a lot of questions from the media. And so when they're working on a story on a particular dam or a dam safety program within a state, they want that big picture. You got to be able to reference and tell the public sort of that bigger picture. So that's why we've come up with having these statistics right out on the gate there. So you can find those statistics as soon as you come in. If you query for a particular state or county, you'll see similar statistics pop up, as well as if you go to the map. Right now, the default, when you go into our map of the U.S., you see all dams and they're all color-coded blue. You can actually change that and show that by owner type. So then you'd see the dams color-coded, who owns the federal agencies, the state, local government, things like that. You can show by height. So then they will be color-coded in the different height categories. And not sure if you know this, but there's 1,600 dams greater than 100 feet tall. So just little things like that, I think, just helps try to give users sort of that bigger picture. I will also note that you mentioned who regulates and manages these dams, and it's true 70-some% are at the state level and only about 6% at the federal level. So you might be asking yourself, well, what about those 20-some%? So some states regulate more dams than in the NID, and some states regulate less dams, but they still know about them, so they report them. So there are some states that only regulate dams over, say, 30 feet tall, but we have NID dams that are 25 feet tall. So for that particular state, they would be listed as not regulated. The state of Alabama still does not have a state dam safety program. So all the non-federal dams in Alabama are listed as unregulated. So each state has their own state dam safety legislation and program. They all are similar in some regards, and yet can be very different as well. So it's been very interesting working with all the different states. And then, of course, all the federal agencies tend to do things just a little bit differently, too. So it's just been interesting getting all of their data and information and putting it into this larger database.
When you started the project and started working in USACE, were you aware of just how many dams there were and of so many different sizes?
Right. Yeah. No, I had no idea. As I mentioned, I visited Hoover Dam, but I had no idea. I will tell you a funny story though. My father, when I was very little, 5, 6 years old, worked for the Corps of Engineers at the Norfolk District, and he was doing some work on the construction of Gathright Dam. And we went, we weren't in school, so Mom took us to go visit Dad one day, and so I actually have a picture of myself, very tiny, 5 or 6 years old, and Gathright Dam construction's way in the background. So it's just kind of funny that at that early age, I was already being exposed to a dam and didn't really know it. But yeah, I had no idea how many dams there were. Again, as we've talked about, quite a few of those are smaller dams. And when I say smaller dams, I'm referring to dams less than 25 feet tall, because there's about 46,000 dams. Almost half of the dams in the inventory are less than 25 feet tall. So folks just may not realize that that dam is in the NID. It is holding back water and could pose a potential risk.
Understanding risk associated with dams and flood risk reduction structures is so important. But do you see that the NID, this updated, especially version of it, this type of resource can be a catalyst for a renewed appreciation for dams in the United States?
I really do. The NID has been, as we've said, it's been around for a long time, but it's not been in the public life. We have not necessarily had a reason to put it in our social media blast or put it out on Twitter or LinkedIn. But now with this new site and having so much new information, our public affairs staff throughout the Corps has just done a great job of promoting it and letting people know that it's out there. So I really do think that is helping kind of get people excited about dams. But the other more technical side of that is that we, the Corps of Engineers, are sharing our flood inundation maps associated with our dams. So as you know, flooding near dams can occur when there's too much water for the dam to hold, requiring larger than normal amounts of water to be released from the dam. Flooding can also occur if there's an operational or structural issue at the dam. And so these maps can help identify people and structures at risk. There are shaded zones showing where water can potentially go with different scenarios. And by meaning different scenarios, I'm talking about the reservoir or the lake behind the dam. As it rises, we have different scenarios. And so these maps show very clearly in shaded areas, what potentially can get wet. So we're really hoping that having those narratives that we talked about earlier, describing the dam, having these flood inundation maps will really help people be prepared before an event takes place. That way they can be prepared. We're also conducting a pilot project with several states, including California and Colorado, because California actually has their maps available as well on their own site. But we're going to try to integrate their maps into the NID. So the idea there is that eventually we'll be able to host other agencies and other dam owners' flood inundation maps, try to give more of that holistic picture to folks, again, trying to help them in advance of a dam-related flood.
In 2015 and 2019, when we had floods here in Tulsa, there was a lot of requests for inundation maps and information about potential flooding areas below Keystone Dam. So I know the public definitely will appreciate that, because we received many calls requesting that kind of information.
Right, and one of the other things is too, there are certain areas of the country that, I hate to use the term, are used to flooding, but they live in an area that is more prone to flooding, so they're a little more prepared. They've seen seen releases come from dams and know what or may not get wet. But there are some parts of the country that our dams have never been filled to capacity, and so they don't know the stories. They've never experienced it. So we really want those people as well to be prepared, just because it's not in their history at all that this could potentially happen.
And it's interesting you say that too, about not being used to flooding or a particular dam filling up. And there's so many times that you have a rainstorm or thunderstorm that historically might have resulted in at least some minimal flooding in certain areas. But because those flood risk reduction structures, those dams are there, you don't have that happening, and so it's very easy to take for granted the fact that, when there's a pretty bad storm, you've got this dam upstream that's actually preventing immediate flooding during or immediately after a storm. I've had some conversations with some of our water managers about that very issue, and we'd certainly like to do I think we'd like to do a better job even of highlighting that point after a storm. Hey, this is how much water there would have been in the river if we hadn't had this dam upstream. What question have I not asked you that I should have asked you?
I'm not sure. I think we've covered pretty much everything about the new website. I would just ask that if folks are going into the site and checking it out, to please send us feedback, either positive, negative, suggestions for improvement. We have a generic NID at usace.army.mil email address on the website, and I promise all users we are looking at it. It's primarily me looking at it and reading it and responding it. It's not a government black hole email there. We really do appreciate in the feedback. If things are not working like you thought, or if things are missing, please let us know. We might be able to improve it or let you know where to get that information. So we just really want the experience to be good. We've put in, as I said, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on this new project. And so we want to make sure that our goal to make it more user-friendly, that it really is more user-friendly. It's very different than the site that has been up for 10, 15 years. It is easier to use, I promise you. I knew the site like the back of my hand. This one is easier, but it will take a little bit of adjusting. But I really do, again, just that feedback, positive, negative feedback, all is welcome and encouraged.
Yeah, and I would definitely recommend people check out that explore function down below toward the bottom of the page, because there's some great information, photos, and multimedia products. The videos.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the photo gallery.
Yeah, the videos that have been put out by Caitlin Nolan are just outstanding. That imagery and those videos are very high quality, very well done. Yes. And enjoyable to watch.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the risk communication team has done a great job on those, as well as some animations. We have a videos page now, and so there's a couple videos on the NID and dams, and then how dams operate. They're just wonderful to look at, and I think really can help tell the story.
Oh, outstanding. Yeah. Is there anything you want to add before we go? I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk to us. I know up there in the Beltway area, you guys are extremely busy, and you've got a lot going on constantly. So thank you for supporting us down here at the district level as well as you all have.
Oh, well, no, thank you for helping us promote the National Inventory Dams, and I owe a lot to Tulsa District. Tulsa District Dam Safety Program is always willing to test things for me, provide feedback, provide great comments. So, anytime I can help Tulsa District out, I'm more than happy to do so.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Corpstruction. Corpstruction is a production of the Tulsa District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Public Affairs Office. This episode of Corpstruction was brought to you by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers National Inventory of Dams. To learn more about the National Inventory of Dams, visit nid.usace.army.mil. Hi, this is Brandon Parrish, host of the Corpstruction podcast. If you've enjoyed this content, please consider liking and subscribing, or provide us with some feedback by leaving a review. If you know someone who might be interested in this content, please consider sharing it. Thanks for joining us again. Have a great day.